So, do you need to file your BOI report or not? There's a lot of controversy going on about that. I'm going to explain how this whole thing works and give you some general principles that may keep you out of trouble in the future when you look at these kinds of things. Anyway, my name is Maurice Kintner. I'm an attorney, real estate broker, business consultant, and coach. Welcome to True Legacy Wealth Media. So, there's been a court case or two. I know one out of Texas in a Texas district court. They use the Fourth Amendment unreasonable search and seizure as their legal basis, where a business filed and said it shouldn't be legal to require these BOI reports. And the district court agreed with that. So this is a federal district court that made the ruling and said you don't have to file these BOI reports. It's an unreasonable search and seizure by the U.S. government was the grounds I believe they used for that. So now what happens is a lot of people will look at that and they'll say, well, there's this federal case here that says I don't have to file my BOI report. So then they go ahead and they don't file their BOI report. Well, there's a saying in the law that whenever you see a new law like this come out, on average, it'll take about 7 years for it to become established law. And that's because of all the lawsuits that go on interpreting it, amendments that are made to it because of cases that are ruled on, and so on and so forth. So it takes years. And nothing is ever finally settled. There's always cases that come up on every law pretty much now and then that can lead to changes, right? So we're in the early stages of this law. It's only been like a couple of years since it was enacted, I think. And you're just going to see a lot of these kind of cases. But let me explain how this works. When a federal district court makes a ruling on a federal law, it doesn't apply to the entire United States. It only applies to information that is specific to that case in that circuit, in that federal circuit. So let me explain that. There are 11 federal circuit courts. Okay. So Texas is the Fifth Circuit, and that includes Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi, right? California's in the Ninth Circuit. So somebody could file a lawsuit in the Ninth Circuit in California, let's say, and the district court there could say, "Oh no, the federal government has the right to do this, and you have to file." And in Texas, the district court could say, "Oh no, this is unreasonable search and seizure." So in if you lived in the Fifth Circuit, you wouldn't have to file a BOI report while that injunction was in place or that ruling was in place by that district court. But in California, in the Ninth Circuit, you still would be required to file that BOI report. Now, people say, well, how does that work then when you get all these conflicts? Well, there's lots of conflicts between these 11 circuits. It happens all the time. I've seen it here and there throughout my career all the time. So what happens now, let's say the federal government appeals this Texas district court ruling. Then it will go to the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. That's the Fifth Circuit Court, right? That's the top court in the Fifth Circuit. And let's say they uphold that district court ruling and they say, yeah, you can't do that, right? It's not a legal law. We say it's not valid, overthrown. It's not constitutional, right? And let's say in California, the Ninth Circuit Court, it goes up to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeal, and they say, yeah, it is legal. You have to file a BOI report, right? Well, then what happens? How do you resolve this conflict? Well, then somebody has to appeal to the Supreme Court of the United States. Now, the Supreme Court, they will grant what they call certiorari if they're going to hear the case, right? But they don't always do that. They don't just do it because there's a conflict and resolve every conflict. They just say, oh, we're not going to hear this case. Who knows what their reasons even are sometimes. And if they say, we're not going to grant certiorari on this case, then if you live in the Ninth Circuit, you're going to have to file it. If you live in the 11th or the Fifth Circuit, you won't have to, right? And someday this may be resolved and you might not even know what it is, right? And then you could get caught flat footed because some new court case came down and resolved this and you didn't know. And it might not be in your favor, right? But let's say the Supreme Court, if they grant certiorari and they hear the case and they come out and they say the law is unconstitutional, then it's unconstitutional. If they say it is constitutional, then it's constitutional everywhere. It's whatever they rule, then it applies to all the circuits, all 11 circuits. But until then, these different circuits can have their different rulings. And if the circuit hasn't made a ruling on it, then the presumption is in favor of the government that it's the law. It hasn't been challenged. They made the law. So now what should you do about this, right? Well, this law is full of all kinds of booby traps, in my opinion, right? If you file this incorrectly, even if you file it, you say, well, I'm just gonna file it to be safe, right? You go down, you file it, you make certain mistakes, you don't include certain people that should have been, you put information in the wrong way, or there's just all kinds of ways you can screw it up. It may not seem like it, but it's just true, right? In fact, insurance companies are charging practitioners, people who do BOI reports for their clients, they're raising their rates because if they get it wrong, the penalties are like $500-600 a day. That's been fluctuating that amount. So last I heard, I think it was $500. Maybe it was 600. I have to go back and look at it again, but they've changed it. Now I can't remember which way, but it's a lot, right? And you could possibly do prison time, right? Too. So if you fill out somebody's BOI report and you do it wrong, you spell a name wrong or the information is wrong, there's perjury issues they can the government can allege against you. There's all these penalties every day, hundreds of dollars every day, penalties. And so you do this for somebody, well, and it's wrong. They're probably going to sue you. Even if you did it right, but the government said you did it wrong, you'd have to litigate it out. It could be very expensive. And they're going to go after the person who did it for them, right? So my opinion is I think it might be a good idea to have a law firm that can do this for you with some lawyers, right? Because then let's say they came after you, it'll be hard for them to say you deliberately screwed up or you did something wrong. It'll be more difficult because or that you were negligent because you went to a lawyer. That's not negligent to go to a lawyer, a professional who would do this for you, right? So you go to the lawyer, and a lot of these law firms are doing it for like 200 or 300 bucks, you know. There's one out in Nevada I know that I refer my people to. That's about what they charge. And anyway, they do that. Now I just tell them that this law firm is available. I don't even refer people to it. And I don't even do these BOI reports because it's such a landmine, right? So anyway, unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with. I think it's a good idea to pay a few $100 and have an attorney somewhere file that BOI report for you. Somebody professional. I wouldn't pay any more than like $200 to $400 for them to do that. And as long as you don't change your address or the people don't change in it, it can stay there permanently. And then no matter what happens, you've at least made the effort. You had a professional do it. That's the best way I can see to protect yourself at this time until this thing works its way through the courts. But just because you see this federal court, this is the bottom line on the takeaway, just because you see this federal court decision, that doesn't mean it applies to you. If you don't live in the First Circuit or the Fifth Circuit, it doesn't apply to you. I'll tell you that right now. And who knows what your circuit has ruled, what district court cases are on. I mean, there's a lot of pushback on this law. And so you just have to do your research. So I think the easier thing to do than spend all this time on it is just have a professional law firm file the report, try to be in compliance with it, and then just see what happens in the end. If it ever goes away or it's ruled invalid. And then if that happens, let's say it goes up to the Supreme Court and they say, yeah, it's unconstitutional. Well, the feds are probably going to try to come back with another law that they think would comply. So just keep your eyes open. Unfortunately, there's this regulatory atmosphere out there, and people want to know what's going on with all these entities because of all the money laundering and terrorist money and other things going on all over the world, and it helps them keep track of it. So, anyway, I hope that helps. And if it does, I hope you'll like and subscribe to the channel. Anyway, thanks for watching.